Hey everyone, and what's going on? Welcome to episode number 118 of the TXR Podcast, the best place on a Sunday night to talk games and learn more about the game industry. I'm your host, Invader, and I'm really looking forward to getting into tonight's topics. There's certainly lots going on in the gaming world. However, before we get into things, be sure to check out last week's show, our interview with Intellivision head Tommy Tallarico. We had a very long discussion about the upcoming Intellivision Amico, where he dropped quite a few exclusive tidbits. So definitely do yourself a favor and check it out. Also,
there was a lot of views on that. I think it's coming up on over 1,000 views here shortly.
Yeah, man. Probably by tomorrow, it's inching closer and closer to 1,000. And it was a really good show. I was really excited to hear just Tommy speak about the Amico and his passion for gaming and just learning new things about it, because he dropped a lot of new details about it. So that was pretty exciting. But definitely, guys, check it out if you haven't already. It was a really, really fun show, and he dropped all kinds of little exclusives in there for us. So definitely take a peek. But before we get on to the panel, there is some unfortunate news earlier today. A lot of people are affected. Kobe Bryant, unfortunately, was lost, killed in a helicopter crash, and lost a couple. Yeah, lost a couple of people on that helicopter crash, including his, I think, 13, 14-year-old daughter, Gianna. So, very heartbreaking. And, I know a lot of people have been really choked up about that. Obviously, a few people in the chat, Rico, Dennis mentioning it here, definitely really shocking news. The guy was only 41, and just heartbreaking. And we give our condolences to the family, and just very sad event. Do you guys want to add anything before we move on?
I think just what he did in general, what his plans were in general, just for the community and the public, and it's just heartbreaking. He did so much for the city of Los Angeles. He's brought so much joy. And he just continued that, or he was going to continue that after his career. And now that, it's so sad for the family. Just, his daughter, who, there were he got asked this question, like, why, keep trying for a boy to carry on his legacy. And he's like, no, my daughter's taking care of that. And, it's her job. But she followed, basketball and him closely, and it's just sad. It's a sad day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, guys in the chat, definitely share your thoughts about Kobe. What you enjoyed about his career, and you're more than welcome to give your thoughts in the chat. Of course, definitely, let everything out. But yeah, a sad day in sports, and he'll be missed. But all right, guys, we're gonna move on to tonight's panel. Hey, Tim, buddy, glad to have you back, bud. There's lots of news and lots of Xbox news to cover. How are you been?
Aside from the news today, pretty shitty. But I've been just getting over getting sick, and just ready to talk some Xbox, maybe get our minds off of the unfortunate news today of what we just talked about. But
you had the flu, Tim, or what?
I don't know. I had some type of something going on. I just slept for 2 days though. After I got home from work on Friday, I pretty much just went to sleep. I feel better now, so hopefully
that's the only thing you can do, man, is just sleep.
Yeah, sleep.
Wait it out.
Take hot liquids and drinking, water and just But it's just gonna be probably a little bit of a low energy show, but that's obvious for the reasons, and hopefully we can just kind of get our minds off of the unfortunate news.
Mm-hmm. Definitely well said there, Tim. All right. Hey, Centurion Man, how you been the past week?
Oh, pretty good today, and the week was going good. Was looking forward to the show, was reading the DMs, and Actually, that's how I found out about Kobe, was hopping on to the DM for the TXR podcast. So that kind of threw me through a loop this morning. But other than that, I'm doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, I'm not like the biggest basketball fan out there. I mean, I do love my sports. I've been to a couple of Toronto Raptors games. Obviously, I'm in the Toronto vicinity, and
I'm not a big sports fan. Forgive me. But like I was saying in the pre-show, any loss of human life is tragic. And it definitely makes you reevaluate things. It makes you, cherish the fact that you're still here with your friends and family members. And you also, feel grievance for those who are affected by this. Cause, excuse the expression, only an a-hole doesn't give a care.
Yeah.
So, even though I didn't know the guy and I didn't really watch him play, it still makes you sit back and go, it makes you realize that, life is something to not be taken for granted. You're not here forever, and you need to make every moment count.
And you see just how emotional people were on social media, and just the whole world is just, their heads are just thrown through a loop on this tragedy, and it's just unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, we'll move on to you, Jeremy. Obviously, besides the the news today, obviously everybody's kind of in a bad mood. Besides that, how are you doing, man? What's new?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Just looking forward to doing this show, but at the same time, I'm really just like, I was just down all day today.
Yeah, definitely. And who else do we got here? Hey, Shock Buddy, how's things at your end?
Pretty good. Other than the sad news, I was in a movie and my phone was just blowing up for it. I was like, this is a crazy amount of text. And then I saw why. And that's tragic news. I think it was said there was like 9 people in the helicopter now. So.
Well, funny you mentioned that. We were just talking about that before we came on, and I guess there's some conflicting reports we've been seeing, so I'm not 100% sure, but
what happens is everybody wants to be first to everything, so they just throw shit out without verifying it first. At first we heard that Fox was the one, he was part of that, the one with Kobe on board, and then it was all his whole family members. And it was just his daughters. And it just, people are quick to assume, and then they throw it out the news like it's actual news, but it's not news. And, it's just, people should get their facts together before they say some shit on, online or tweet about it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. It's, there's a lot of people who want, the instant scoop, the instant article, the instant tweet. And I've already seen some really terrible takes by some journalists and just people tweeting stuff out. And
that one from Ari Shafir was pretty terrible.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few. But it's tough. It's definitely tough. And, slowly but surely, everybody will move on. It's just, of course, it's heartbreaking, and we'll get on with tonight's show and talk about all kinds of gaming news. Because, hey, guys, you know what? This week there was a whole ton of news that came up for both Xbox and just gaming news in general. And we're gonna start with, a bit of an article that came up, and it's about GDC, the Game Developers Conference. And GDC conducted a State of the Industry survey. They've done this for a few years now, and recently they asked game developers a whole wide range of questions, and there's some really interesting stats coming out of this, as it looks like devs are looking ahead to the next-gen consoles, but might not be looking to leave this gen behind. One question was, which platforms are you developing your current project for? And PC was on top at 56%. I mean, I guess that's really not surprising. Mobile coming in at 39%. Now, this is where the really interesting stats start popping in. PS4 Pro it's at 25%. The Xbox One X at 23%. The Nintendo Switch at 17%, so a little lower. Now, as far as next gen goes, the PS5 at 11% and the Xbox Series X at 9%. So not too far off there, just a couple of points. Now, panel members, what do you make of this? What's your take out of these statistics? As I mean, you could extrapolate a few things, really.
Right. So, my take on it is people go where the money is. And a lot of it has to do with, the install base and accessibility of the systems. And I think if you ask the same question, last generation, I think, Xbox would be on top for that simple reason. There's no doubt about it. Xbox created a lot of barriers, with its initial launch. And he bet the house on, Matrick bet the house on online connectivity, making it a TV box. They did a complete flip-flop in policy almost, as opposed to like the 360 when the Xbox One came out, and which made 360 a success. I know you guys remember that. But Matrick was a walking, he was a walking PR nightmare, which Phil is still cleaning up his mess his mess today. He's cleaning it up, no doubt about it. But I know, I joke when I say, bring back Matrick, but the damage done by that guy, like I said, Phil's trying to still clean up his mess. I will never, ever forget Matrick's comments when he was quoted in saying, if you're backwards, what was it? If you're backwards compatible, you're really backwards, something in the longs.
No,
yeah. And
if you want backwards compatibility, we have a 360 for that, I believe.
Right. No, he said that, but he actually was quoted in saying, I think I have it. Yeah. So if you're backwards compatible, you're really backwards. And he also said, fortunately, like Tim said, fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity, and it's called, the 360. So that message just resonated with people, which again, Phil's trying to clean up. But to be fair, obviously Phil and the current Xbox leadership has had their own, PR little nightmares. I want to call them too devastating, but Phil's comments on the whole VR is isolating, and the comments were just bad. And I think I don't know if you guys remember, part of the reason why I joined Twitter was his Street Fighter comments, and I know Tim could remember this, and that's how I kind of met Tim and started talking to Tim, was his Street Fighter comments.
Yeah.
A person asked Phil on social media about how he felt about Street Fighter being exclusive, and Phil's response was that business deals happen, and we won't do all of them, but when we have a first party franchise, he's referring to Killer Instinct, I'd rather invest in ours. And I think about all the developers that I don't want to say he singled them out, but it kind of felt like he did. Imagine you're a developer and you hear those words, you kind of get singled out. But I think a lot of it just has to do with the money trail. PlayStation has a larger install base, console straight up, as opposed to Xbox or the Switch. But you look at PC, that's why PC's number one, and PC's number one because it's easier to develop for, and it's more accessible. People can just, there's no real restrictions as opposed to Xbox and PlayStation and the Switch. So I think you see that, and I think that's part of the reason why developers prefer PlayStation over Xbox. Now, I don't know what you guys think, but that's my take on it.
I think a lot of it has to do with the regions. Like, you're not going to see any Japan developers on there. Probably you're going to be geared toward more so Switch, PS4. Same thing with like Europe, where markets just where Xbox just isn't at. So it's going to be split up between that and PC. So maybe they want to get in with that, but there's no big install bases in some of those regions. So
right.
For me,
Well,
go ahead, Invader.
Oh no, well, I was just gonna chime in and say that, well, it makes sense to, they're doing all these initiatives with PC, Xbox wants to do a Play Anywhere initiative. Sony's definitely been testing the waters with that with PS Now as well. And it just, with these kind of statistics coming from game devs, like 56% are, PCs at the top of their list that they're developing for, it just kind of makes sense, right? But go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I'm basically to further your point. I think that the PC, development side is that's going to go up. I think this probably like Jeremy, says is probably a little bit of popularity why PS4 was PS5 is more is higher than the Xbox counterpart, but. I think the real thing to take from there is that PC is the leading development choice, and I think that number is going to even grow. And the way that affects Xbox really is that at its core, game core, which is now it's kind of a new, it's their new way of their UWP. Remember that?
Yeah.
This is their new take at it, where basically you develop one version and you kind of just port it down, and that game core is a way to basically have the code being the same for the PC and the Xbox box when you port it. I don't think it's a big deal.
No.
I think that it definitely shows that PC is the developer's choice, and like I said, I can see that number going up throughout this generation because of the way the systems are all similar, and PC is seemingly growing, and the development portion of that is also growing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Centurion, what are your thoughts on this, bud?
Well, there's no denying the fact that, yes, developers are going to go towards the larger install base, especially when Shock makes the correlation that, their PlayStation's being sold in more regions.
Yeah.
Definitely, though,
point.
I want to say that I'm curious on the long run, though, on those PC numbers. I feel like eventually console and PC numbers are at least going to start becoming very similar. Right now, there's about around 20% difference in the numbers. And so definitely I'm curious going forward into the future on how much closer those numbers are going to get to each other, because these consoles are starting to revel, they're starting to become PCs in their own rights. They're starting to kind of blur the lines between console and PC. And so going forward, game developers are going to see that these consoles don't have as many limitations as they did back in the day. Yeah. And it's going to get more console developers to want to develop games. And also with the idea of creating games on that x86 architecture, the fact that you can scale games from PC to console without having to break your back to do it is definitely going to it's going to be great. Like if I really think about it, it was said earlier this week by David Preen on Dealer Show that this is going to open the gates for new kinds of genres of gaming, because all these PC developers that have all these ideas and stuff that console gamers have never seen are going to be able to start putting some of these ideas to work on console gaming.
Yeah, in hope. I mean, I hope that happens. But you see, Epic Games, what they're doing with their whole IP, and I'm not IP, but their own online and Steam, and it's just who knows, because those games, Epic is big with the exclusivity rights with some of their games, and I think they're just going to move forward with that. So we'll see how it goes, but. They're paying big money for those exclusive rights to some of these games.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting too, because I mean, obviously larger developers would be able to, they'd be able to support a whole bunch of platforms, but indie developers, they'd only have access, they probably only focus on one. So it kind of makes sense for them to go for, again, PC, or focus on, one specific console at a time. That's just unfortunately the way that the industry works. But, guys, there's another interesting question that popped up too, and I'll read it right here. Are you developing your next game for next generation platforms or existing platforms? And it's very interesting. And so it says exclusively next gen, 5%, just 5%. Exclusively for existing platforms, 22%. Both existing and next gen, 34%. And don't know at this time, 39%. So what are your takeaways from that, guys? Because it seems like they're not quite ready to commit to the next gen, which it makes sense, but it also makes you wonder with Xbox's comments on the Series X exclusive games and developing for games going forward. It's going to be kind of a slower transition period. It kind of makes sense when you see how the developers are kind of answering these.
Well, of course, because who would just want to throw, like, if we combine PlayStation and Xbox together, that's 140 million gamers. And, who would want to throw every single one of those gamers to the side and want to basically hit the reset button and create games for a new generation of consoles? They're holding to the same ideals as Microsoft. They want their content to be cross-gen, so that way they don't have to worry about people who didn't upgrade to the Series X or the PS5. The PS4 owners and the Xbox One owners are still going to be able to buy their product and put money in their pocket.
Yeah, I think so. No, that's a good point.
Well, I think the whole thing with the comments with Booty and how that was taken was kind of bullshit. I think people overreacted and didn't really understand that 1 to 2 years you're not going to get a next gen, really a breakthrough type of game, nor are these games really they're transitioning. So that 1 to 2 year comment was really at best, it shouldn't be something that people would go crazy. You're not going to affect many games with that. You're talking maybe 3 to 5 AAAs, and we already know 3 of the AAAs. So all of that with that makes complete sense. What's going on as far as what games are being developed? Yeah, if games, I'd say right now, if like a game is starting up, you're going to say next generation because you have a dev cycle of 3 to 4 years. But games already that are starting, like the 2021 Call of Duty, that's probably going to be cross-generation. You can probably mirror what happened last gen and apply it to this gen. You're going to have that same type of transition. And when we really get to the next generation games that we were talking about, you're really going to start to see them shine 3 to 5 years within the cycle, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's just interesting, the comments coming out of this, the survey, I should say, because we want to see how devs are looking forward to the next gen and how they're looking at the current platforms. And obviously the current ones, the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, they're not going nowhere anytime soon. Devs feel comfortable with those, and slowly but surely they'll make their way transitioning to the next gen.
They're not going to shorten their install base, looking back at it, and I overreacted too. I always overreact, but but it's one of those things where they're not going to do 5-10 million units as opposed to 100 or even 50 million units, like the Xbox One. But that's it.
Absolutely.
And I did want to mention if people think that with PlayStation they're actually going to get games in the first 1 to 2 years that could not be possible on the PS4. I think they're nuts. Just like with the PS4 and PS3, that first 2 years of PS4, there was no game that could have not been done scope wise on the PS3. Killzone could have been done on the PS3. Infamous, same thing. Like that's all we're talking about. So Xbox, they're just doing goodwill because they need to build that up. Sony, they don't need to. They got everybody on their side right now, so they can lock people out, make people want to jump over, especially since all your games come over. So.
Absolutely. Tim, was there anything else you wanted to share before we move on?
No, pretty much that's all we were saying.
All right, guys. All right. I think we've gone over that pretty well. Just some interesting stats there from the GDC survey. But going on to our next topic, fellas, and it looks like Xbox is beefing up its marketing with a familiar face. Jerret West, former vice president and head of marketing at Netflix, is rejoining Microsoft as chief marketing officer at Xbox. Now, during his time before at Microsoft, he was there for, about 8 years, from 2003 to 2011, including 3 years as director of marketing. So, this guy was pretty important back in the day. Now, guys, it's an interesting move getting Jerret West back. Do you think bringing him back into the fold is a smart move?
Yeah, I mean, you don't leave a huge company obviously Xbox is a huge company, but he was at Netflix for 7 years. And it just goes to show just how laser focused Xbox is, in all aspects of their business, from marketing, to the games. So it's all in for them right now, I think. And, Jerret West, he's done some good things at both places, Xbox and Netflix. Sure, they did a lot of negotiations to get him back, but I mean, it's a good move for Xbox.
Definitely. Well, this guy, I remember when he was there, I remember seeing him on different videos, and he was always highlighting on the Xbox 360, for example, the new social media apps that were coming out. I remember him talking about like Facebook, Zune, Twitter, and yes, even the Netflix integration, funny enough. But this guy, he's really on it. He's really on the whole social media aspect and just getting really involved with the community. And he was also really heavily involved with Xbox Live in total. So it'll just be interesting to see how his time at Netflix is going to really drive, for example, Game Pass, right? Because Game Pass is often compared to the Netflix of gaming in a lot of ways, right, guys?
Right. And I think you're going to see, just full integration and you're going to see a lot of marketing dollars thrown into not just, the retail businesses like GameStop. GameStop's going out of business very soon here. But you're going to, Best Buy and Amazon and it's going to be interesting to see what he does on that end. But at the same time, it's going to be really interesting what he does in digital marketing. I think there's a lot of opportunity for him there, and we'll see how it takes off.
Do you think their marketing in general is going to become more aggressive? Because we all remember how it was during the Xbox 360 era. So, the fact that they're bringing him back into the fold, they want to kind of see if they can kind of relight the fire that was created back during the 360 era.
Yeah, he did a great job. I don't know if you guys remember a couple of things. I think he did create the jump in whole, the whole jump in tag thing. I'm not exactly sure, but I think that was him. But like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what he does here over the next couple of years.
Well, I can tell you this much: it was a big deal within Microsoft that this guy was hired. I think that there might be a wire next week that you might get of this guy. For him to join the team from being with on my Netflix, is huge, and I think one of
It's
the
a big
reasons why
deal,
he
right?
signed on. Yeah, it's a big deal. This guy is no joke. He's somebody that can rival Phil. I mean, Phil. I think you need to have somebody who's not gonna. You can't have all yes men around you, and I think that this guy is the type of stature that can say, Phil, let's be more aggressive here. Let's do this, do that. I think this move you're gonna see Game Pass focus, which means content focus, which means you're gonna get more games. There might be more. This is just a significant higher as far as I'm concerned. You're going to see dividends paid off with this. You're going to see more games. You're probably going to see more studios.
Yeah.
And I think later in this week, keep your eyes peeled. You might get some eye-opening information to why he is taking the position from Netflix. For him to join on Xbox is huge from Netflix. I mean, I think he did it because he saw the potential, to be honest.
And Tim, you remember, as in terms of a marketing standpoint, Xbox was out of sight, out of mind, and Sony was just wiping the floor in every aspect of their business. Whether you walk into Best Buy and see, the first thing you see in their gaming setup is PlayStation, and it just, yeah, Sony pays for that real estate, but at the same time, Xbox needs to do a better job, getting some of that real estate back from
Yes.
Sony, and it's just one of those.
I think this is something. I agree 100%. I think this is one of those things that's going to signifies that. I think Xbox, to be honest, where you're talking, really went through a horrendous generation, a hard generation. There was a time when, listen, me and you were at dinner, and I'm sure you remember the dinner. And
we could talk about it now with who.
I wouldn't really go into it, but the fact is that there were some dire times for Xbox, and they weren't spending money. And this is just a signal that they're real deal right now. This type of guy is not gonna. He's not going to join a shitbag company that's going nowhere.
It's not going to spend money. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a significant hire. And like I said, you might hear more from it next week. Keep your eyes open. And I think this just shows. And Jeremy has always pointed that out, that and I know, and I've seen him question executives, why are you letting them get into the space? Why are you letting them do this with the journalists? And I mean, I'll give it to Jeremy. He's very good and keen in that. And he always brought it up. But I think Tim, they didn't spend money.
It frustrates me when, Xbox is really only relevant in the U.S. market, if you really think about it. And then you look on the other hand at the 360, where they at least tried to make an imprint overseas with, they used to get Japanese games coming in from all regions, Europe, Japan, China, all these places used to want to develop for Xbox. And that has gone away. And now with this guy coming aboard, I think he's going to do a better job. Hopefully, turning that tide in the retail business.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think some of that was by default though, because of the cell processor. So a lot of times we'd get Tales, one of the Tales of I think it was Vesperia or what have you.
Yeah.
And then it came a year later to PS3, which you would never see that today. So
yeah. No, there is some truth to that.
It was definitely a different climate. There was definitely like we said, this generation Xbox was stumbling, and I think there was a time where Xbox might have thought that they're just going to go, to be like kind of a Valve type presence where they're not going to really create games. They'll do some back end stuff. They'll own things like Havoc and they'll make money off of that, but they're not going to be doing what they're doing now. This, with Game Pass and xCloud and everything that's moving forward, the transition has been stark, And I
Yeah.
do think that they might be smelling a little blood here, and
Yeah.
they're going for it. So the days of like, worrying about like where Xbox, if they can spend anything or any kind of money on any kind of third party, I think that that's over with. I think, to be honest, this Game Pass, it's a monster in itself, and I really think.
Tim, you could say that it's a make or break situation for Xbox, and they're putting all their resources into Game Pass. They have to.
Pretty much, yeah. The fact of the matter is, and I've said this, and people get upset when I say this, I do believe we might live in a world where in 5 years, Game Pass is possibly just by itself bigger than Xbox itself, bigger than the console business. It's a subscription service that just keeps growing and growing. And when let's just say in 5 years they have 40 million customers or 35 million paying customers, the revenue that you're talking about from that, because everyone's their $1 deals are gonna, obviously gonna transition out, and they're, but let's just say it's even like 20 million. The amount of money and revenue that they're making just from Game Pass is going to be huge. And I think that getting a guy like this, I think that he sees the significant trend that's going on. And like I said, I think next week we get the business, we get the numbers for what Xbox division's doing. And I think that he might be privy to some of that information. I mean, this guy is not going to go into, like I said, he's not going to go into something where they're
not going to put money into the app.
They're not going to leave Netflix for something that isn't going to have potential and growth. So this is a real significant hire. And even within Xbox, I've talked to people within Xbox. They're like, yeah, this guy's real deal. And just a shout out to Mike Nichols. I had written a tweet, and I thought better of it because Mike Nichols was there when Game Pass started, and Mike Nichols was there when a lot of all this stuff started. So we can't forget about guys like Mike Nichols or Quick, or Ybarra. Those guys built this foundation. Unfortunately, they left and they went for whatever they're doing now, but those guys can't be forgotten. But on the other side, a guy like this is a real significant hire. It's not saying like he's bigger and better than Mike Nichols. No, it's just the fact that Mike's built something huge, and with the rest of Xbox, and now you're going to get people that are going to look at a situation that's good. It's like a manager. It's like going into a baseball team. You see now you got a real good deal. And, he's jumping into that position. So, yeah, it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. I remember, like, obviously the OG Xbox days and the early 360, like the first half of the generation there with the 360. And they had so many good marketing campaigns, good strong trailers that were genuinely memorable. You go to Gears of War, remember the Mad World trailers?
Oh my god, it's part of pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
Jump in, like Jeremy said. There was so many things that they did that was recognizable.
A lot of
we all remember those, and he was actually a part of that. So it's a significant thing. I guess we'll see what he does in the future, though. And it's like I said, I just can't reiterate how from one situation 3 years ago to where they are now it's such a stark difference.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm really excited about this move, guys. Obviously, it's nice having a familiar face, a guy that was with Xbox previously, back to when they were just creating their hardcore IP and getting word out with the marketing. This is just really exciting to me, right? To me, it's them wanting to go back to them being aggressive, back to them being them again. So I'm looking forward to it. Anyone else want to chime in before we move on? I'll take that as a no. All right, fellas, we'll move on. And you know what? I tell you, Ninja Theory just keep on surprising us. The studio released a dev diary a few days ago detailing what's going on at the studio, that the team has done its prior commitments and can now focus on key projects. They wanted to state that the studio has grown, but still significantly smaller compared to other industry studio teams. And lo and behold, they surprise us with a new game project called Project Mara. The game explores mental health, and really it only has one character and one location, and it's very, very experimental. The studio wants to create a new storytelling medium, so they say. Now, guys, I'm sure you checked out the trailer by now. What are your thoughts on this new horror project by Ninja Theory?
I think it's gonna be awesome. I love the fact that Ninja Theory is pushing the boundaries of gaming in general. Like when you see that flight of stairs, I was sitting there trying to figure out if it was an actual live image for starters. I mean, that was really gorgeous graphics right there.
Oh, yeah.
But to put it, I love how Microsoft saw the potential in Ninja Theory. They're not out there throwing millions of dollars at companies that have already established themselves. They want to grow the companies that they've bought into these powerhouses that we see today from some of the top names like Insomniac and Kojima. Now, I love that because you see what Ninja Theory is doing. They're pushing the boundaries of gameplay. They're tackling subjects like mental illness, and they're giving people a way to see what it's like to live with certain mental illnesses like schizophrenia and other stuff like that. And, it like a lot of people don't want to talk about mental illness, but, Ninja Theory is putting it in the forefront. They're definitely wanting to put it out there for people to experience this stuff. So that way, you have a different perspective on it. It's one thing to sit there and tell somebody who has a mental illness, well, just stop doing that. You don't really understand why. And by being able to be exposed to games like this that help you understand why, it helps you put a new perspective on just what someone else might be going through in their everyday life.
Yep, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of, horror games in general. I think this one's being called a psychological horror game. But, Silent Hill is probably my favorite in terms of storytelling and its characters, and if I had to pick which one was my favorite, I would probably pick it's either going to be 2 or 4. I think Silent Hill The Room kind of stuck with me the most out of all of them. And the way I interpreted the story was at the beginning, excuse me if I go on this rant about the Silent Hill story for a second, but it made an impact on me. I think Project Mara has the potential to do that. But, at the beginning of the game, the main character was locked in this haunted apartment. And I don't know if you guys ever played The Room, but, he was locked in this haunted apartment for 5 days with no means of communication whatsoever. And he was having recurring nightmares, and the reason why this apartment was haunted was the main enemy in the game was an evil serial killer that was born inside the actual apartment. So you see 2 versions of like the main enemy in the game, and one was like a little boy which identifies as innocence in the game, and then on the other side you have this serial killer and you could see who that little boy has become. So the main enemy, which his name was Walter, he wanted to return. The way I interpret it was he wanted to return to the room where he thought this room was his mother. And there was an explanation for that in the game because Walter was born in this room out of pure hatred. And if you guys know the Silent Hill series, it's pretty warped. His parents, I think, were referenced in the game, if I remember correctly. And they just locked him in his room. They never made physical contact with his parents. The boy never made physical contact with his parents. So the game kind of really made you feel like, it made you feel for this kid who grew up in just to be a brutal killer. And at the end of the game, you face off against the boy, which is Walter. And the game makes you feel sympathy for the serial killer. And to this day, there has never been another game, I think, with just a powerful story-driven experience that I hope Project Mara will be. But at the end of the game, you see the little boy return to the room, which is obviously his mother. He opens the door, and you don't see exactly what the boy sees, but he falls to the ground and he dies. And it's just, I don't know. I just wanted to share with you one of my favorite horror games of all time. But I think Xbox first party needs this type of game. I think it completes the portfolio that Phil always talked about initially when he first started with Xbox, and they haven't really touched on this genre. I think Project Mara will dive deep, obviously into a serious mental disorder such as schizophrenia. Not only will it be a horror game, but it'll be a complete learning experience, for those with the sickness.
Awareness, right?
Yeah. So it'll be, and it's sickness where people interpret reality abnormally. It's totally different. And I've had to deal with people with sickness that results in hallucinations and delusions, and with schizophrenia. If they do their due diligence, which I think they will, I think Project Mara will be a very special title. And it's even more so than Hellblade. I mean, let's face it. And it's, that's pretty much my spiel on that. But I'm looking forward to Project Mara, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that you really. What were you gonna say, Invader?
Oh, go right ahead, Tim. Go right ahead.
No, I just think that you really kind of hit the nail on the head there. Hellblade's going to be their, AAA experience that they're pushing. But this game, from where it's coming from, could have the most potential impact of all their games. I think what they're trying to do here is, like you said, drive awareness of mental illness and try to bring the gamer to kind of understand where someone with the schizophrenia, could educate them in a certain way or show them how, their world is. And I think it's very powerful stuff. I'm hoping, like you, that they kind of expand it and they go with the idea of making this something where it could really break boundaries and do something that games really haven't attempted to do. And I really think that it's interesting stuff, and I think it's going to be pretty scary. I don't think it's going to be like a long game or something. I think it could be, maybe an extended demo type thing. But I do think that if it is successful and it does break boundaries and it does, gain to arrive at its goal of getting people more aware of this and everything, that they could build on it. And I'm definitely excited for it. And it's a genre that, like you said, Xbox needs, and it could be something that could be big. So it's good stuff.
Well, if you guys remember the game PT, well, the demo really, it was PT. It was supposed to be the Silent Hills on PlayStation.
Right.
And that particular demo was only about 30 minutes in length. And it created this huge impact in, I think, in just gaming in general, what can be done and the experiences that you can have on some of these next-gen systems. So now you take in consideration the power of the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 and then high-end PCs. And it's slowly but surely the lines are blurring between what's real and what's not in terms of, how real these games are dishing out. I think you're in for a treat, in these later games. if they put the production values in some of these high dollar projects. And it's just going to be interesting over the course of the next few years.
Absolutely. When I first saw it, I was like, what is this? Are they teasing another game? Obviously, Ninja Theory, they got Bleeding Edge coming out in a couple of months. Hellblade 2 just got announced a month ago, if not under a month. And now we got a third new game in development. I mean, hey guys, this is pretty awesome stuff from Ninja Theory. They are being very productive, and I'm happy to see this under the Xbox Game Studios. I mean,
I think Bleeding Edge is going to produce the revenue in terms of the microtransactions that Ninja Theory needs in order to move forward with some of these larger projects, because they still, at the end of the day, they still get a budget, and I think Bleeding Edge is going to be big for Xbox. It's going to be big for PC as well. It's coming to PC, right? If I'm not mistaken. It's going to be huge in terms of the revenue, and it's going to be one of these streaming giants to where people are going to want to tune in and play this game. So I think that's what's driving a lot of some of the passion projects you see from Ninja Theory, coming here shortly.
Well, one thing I thought was interesting when they talked about Hellblade, and that they talked about how their team is 40 developers, and it's twice the size of what they did with Hellblade, and how that with procedural technology and tools, that they basically are going to do a AAA scale game, but typically AAA has over 100 or 150 developers with such a smaller team. Now, if you look at Hellblade, and I think Hellblade is one example, and possibly the only example, of a small developer really, touching the lines of AAA with such a small team, where they did it. So if you take considering what they did with Hellblade, and you double to triple when it ends the amount of people working on it and the technology growing that they've used, and the prowess that they have, it's going to be very interesting to see how Hellblade 2 turns out as well. So I think this is one of the studios that they this is possibly their top studio acquisition. It seems like a steal. Looking back,
Tim, I think you hit it on the head, because if you look at Hellblade, in terms of sound design, graphic, lighting, the character acting, the voice work, just
facial animation,
the facial animations, that's stuff that even Gears of War hasn't produced. Let's be frank, and it goes to show just the talent that Ninja Theory has, just kind of be, just waiting to be explored. So I think it's sky's the limit for Ninja Theory. They did a good job with Enslaved. I don't know if you guys ever played Enslaved, but Enslaved was an excellent game. And Hellblade was an excellent game. So I'm looking forward to these next projects.
And I think people it goes over their head as soon as they heard that possibly double than what they had on Hellblade, which everybody's assuming 40 developers, that it's automatically it's AA, it's not AAA. But totally forgot what he said there. Like, they're using tricks. They have the budget available, so AAA is more about the budget, not the developer.
Yeah.
And they make the excuse, because I made the point that Death Stranding they only had 80 developers in that whole, whether or not all 80 were making the game. But then they make the point they were getting outside help from the other studios Sony has. I'm like, well, Ninja Theory has the rest of their studio, plus they could collab with the other studios now that they have that family of studios, so they could do the same thing. If they need the help, they'll use it.
100%. Jeremy said, I mean, I don't really want to take a shot at Gears, but that's a development team of over 300 people, And there's things that are done on Hellblade that are
Yep.
done better. I mean, even the sound design, I would say that Hellblade's possibly top 5 best sound designs ever made in a game.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's just mind-boggling what they produced with such a small team. Now you have the same team with the same guy, but now you have 20 probably very highly hand-picked developers, and like Shaq was saying, you're gonna get some collaboration with other studio people, and they're probably, I would think they're still hiring. I think that they're gonna probably add another 10 to 15, but I think it's pretty obvious that you're gonna get, just even watching that trailer, you're going to get a bona fide AAA experience. But what they're doing is, I think that they're trying to, they're doing something that really is new, and it's kind of setting the precedent. And I'm wondering if other studios, especially within Xbox, are going to try to accomplish. I mean,
Now,
they also got City. Go ahead.
isn't there a new studio being built for Ninja Theory?
Yes. I'm not sure if it's completed yet, but it's definitely, like, I've seen the construction video. I think I posted it in our DM, and I'm not sure if it's done yet, but yeah, they have a new HQ, like a new main studio being built. So
Yep. I don't think they even have the facilities now to have a big team. So they're building that larger one. A couple of years ago, when me, Tim, South, Megatron, we went to Fan Fest and E3, and we had a chance to meet some of the heads at Ninja Theory. And I don't know if you remember, Tim, they were there at that little event that we went to. You remember, Tim?
Yeah, I remember. You. I think you were getting cards from where you. I remember you.
I was hustling.
I remember something with cards. You got cards from them, and you were trying to get them on the show.
Yeah, but talk about an inspiration. These women, powerful women in the industry, who done amazing work. I think with the team that they had, and I think it's been in a long time coming. It's good to see Xbox finally putting money where it needs to be put. So,
I was just wanting to add on that, for starters, like, Ninja Theory looks like it's going to put itself as one of the top Microsoft studios out that they've been able to purchase. And this whole idea of putting like A's on budgets and teams is beyond me, because I'm a huge entertainment fan, and the movie that comes to mind for me was the original Saw movie. I got to meet the producer from Fade to Black, the production company that actually did the original Saw movie. And the original Saw movie was a extremely low budget film. It was all pretty much shot in the same location.
Almost like an independent film. Yeah.
Yeah. And like that really set the bar for a new genre of horror. And so, I mean, and then if you kind of go forward, all the sequels were kind of meh, because they were going for that shock and awe value, because now they have this budget, because, everybody loves Saw, so just throw the entire budget at them and they can do whatever they want with it. And we saw what we got. When you have budget constraints and you don't have all the money in the world, I feel like you get more creativity and you get more for less, because these guys have to go out and make themselves shine with, literally these 40 individuals have to go out and make themselves shine better than the team that had 300 if we're using Gears 5. And so that's why I can never assign a value to any game when it comes to budget or how many people worked on it. For me, it's, did I enjoy the game? Did the story mean anything to me? Was the gameplay great? That's really what sets the difference between me on a good game and a bad game, not budgets and A's and all this other funny stuff. But, again, using entertainment, if you want to see what happens when you have an open checkbook, look at the Star Wars franchise right now. And I'm just talking about I'm talking about the movies in theaters. I'm not going to, I love Star Wars. I'm not going to say they're a dumpster fire, but they sure as heck weren't what we got when the original trilogy, because the original trilogy was paid for by George Lucas pretty much out of his own pocket. And so there were some budget constraints. So they had to do what they had to do to make those movies shine. And now fast forward to they're owned by Disney and they have an open checkbook. And the last few movies we've gotten out of them were all over the place.
You know, to be fair, you made the horror, the horror movie genre comparison. Horror movies in general have a very limited budget, very small budget.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you remember you guys have seen the newest Halloween movie, which it only had a budget of about $10 million, but it was able to produce, over well over $200 or $300 and $203 million in revenue, something outrageous like that. But you can see, like you said, some of the tricks of the trade that these talented, costume designers and set piecers are able to do with pretty much nothing.
Well, even look at Joker. Joker was only made for what, 50 million?
Yeah.
And it's over $1 billion grossed in theaters. So
I think a quarter. Oh, sorry, Centurion. I think
go first.
A quarter of that was just on Joaquin Phoenix's paycheck.
Definitely, when it comes to in the movie industry, when you're an aspiring director, you got to remember, when you're the director, you're the end all be all of the budget. And so therefore, if you can make a badass movie for $5 to $10 million, that's going to get people's ears perked up, because you're like, hey, you made something great for $5 to $10 million. What happens if we give you 20 million? And then your next movie, you're given 40 million. And then after that, basically you show that you can make good movies without money being a thing. And that's one thing about games too. It applies to games. You can make an awesome game without having to throw an asinine amount of money at it.
Well, you look at Rocket League was another, but I mean, I think you bring up a great point in Saw and a comparison of what's going on here. But when you say the things that you say, I agree with you. But to a point, what they've done with 20 people and how they did what they did with Hellblade, that is really the exception to the rule. What they produced with Hellblade with 20 people is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to take that same formula and now you're going to add more technology, more developers, even if you can double that output, you're talking about a game that's going to rival pretty much any kind of AAA. So I think that's what's so special about Hellblade is they kind of killed. Well, they kind of made the argument that you just made, where you said, I don't think that you can define a number and put the A's, and the way you just explained, which was very elegant. But the thing is that before them, I probably would have been arguing with you, saying, well, that's not true. Where is the example? But they kind of are the example.
Yeah. And
in a way, Saw was kind of that example too. I mean, that that movie, I watched that the other night, and I thought to myself, this movie is an unbelievable movie, and it was done on whatever the budget was. So it's pretty crazy what Ninja Theory is attempting to do, and I do think with what they're doing is going to affect other developers.
Yeah,
and actually, it's going to have some type of lasting effect, and it's pretty amazing what they've done.
And I gotta tell you guys, when I played Hellblade, I was amazed by what that small team did, whether it be the environments, the lighting, the character models. It's so much detail to them. And the voices, the sound, you put a pair of headphones on, completely different game, in my opinion. It just,
absolutely.
Really amps things up. And that's what makes me so curious. Because, before they were just like, testing things out, just playing with what they had. Now they have the budget. They can really experiment. They can go all out if they want to.
And I remember, sorry to interrupt, but I remember Tim on Twitter just talking about the sound design when you had headphones on in that game and what kind of experience he had with it. Sorry to interrupt.
It was true. When I'm a sound design guy, like I think previously on TXR when it was back in thing, we had a guy from the Quantum Break. I forgot his name. I think Jeremy, you got him on the show, like you get everyone. But he was a sound designer. I thought the sound design on Quantum Break was pretty special.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This game, the sound design, I mean, it's to the point where like you're fighting towards the end, and you're fighting one of the sequences, and they're throwing like a knife at you, and it does this like reverb sound, and it's just there's certain things that were done in that game with the headphones that I was just completely floored. And not for nothing, playing that game for like 2 hours, like literally, we talked about like how Hellblade, how Ninja Theory's like, with that game, it was a deep message. But like my mind was playing games with me after. Like I remember playing that game for 2 hours. It was like 12 o'clock at night, and I started freaking out. And I was just like,
you started hearing shit.
Yeah, you really start like your mind starts to play tricks on you, and I that's honestly that to me that when we talk sound design, that rivals pretty much anything. It's probably top 3 to 5 I've ever heard.
And I've always said, the last podcast we had with Tommy on, sound design and the soundtrack is 50% of the game. And you could take a look at all the great games, the best games ever made throughout history. And one of the key aspects of the game is sound. Whether it's Ori and the Blind Forest, whether it's Metroid Prime, whether it's Halo. Can you imagine Halo without the soundtrack? Or, Master Chief's voice work, or Cortana's voice work? Can you imagine those games without that? I can't. So you can see what sound does to games like Project Mara, and the same goes for Hellblade.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I really think that Xbox Game Studios needs a game like this in their library, and I'm really glad to see that Ninja Theory has all these projects going on. Like, honestly, kudos to them. Small studio just trying out different things, and yeah, I am excited for this. Project Mara is definitely on my radar for sure. Now, guys, we're going to go on to some more Xbox news. This past week, Xbox head Phil Spencer and members of his team were in Japan talking with studios and publishers there. Over Twitter, Phil stated that great to be back in Japan with the team talking and listening to amazing studios and publishers about 2020 and beyond. Really strong energy and excitement here about gaming future. Phil apparently got hands-on with previously known and unannounced games. So, guys, I gotta ask, panel, what do you make of this visit? Is this just for E3, or hey, maybe something more?
Man, the safe bet is to say that Phil was in Japan to bring more of these titles to the US market. And I think Phil has done a better job getting some of these games onto the Xbox platform, obviously, but it's nowhere near on Sony's level. Gamers think that Sony's only exclusives are some of these big games like Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, Spider-Man, etc., etc. But when in actuality, there's dozens upon dozens of these solid Japanese titles that are available on PlayStation, and then offered on their platform that you can't really buy anywhere else besides PlayStation. Some of them moved to Switch, some of them moved to PC. But my hope is, obviously the big one is Phil purchased a major Japanese studio like From Software. I think that was the talk around the Twitter sphere or social media sites. And why not? They had a good relationship in the past with From Software, with terrific games like Otogi. I don't know if you guys remember Otogi games on the original Xbox, which were amazing. But here's the hoping. What we could hope, right?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Well, the idea of studio acquisitions, they've come up a lot. Heck, even Phil Spencer has mentioned it within the past few months about adding some kind of Asian studio. I believe Matt Booty has also brought it up. There's been lots of chatter from Xbox going on saying, yeah, they definitely seem interested in acquiring an Asian studio. Japanese studio certainly makes a lot of sense. I know that they've also been in South Korea as well, if I'm not mistaken, but Japan is definitely a focus. I mean, I could see them going out, obviously, and getting, more third-party deals, or even for games that they seem to have marketing deals for already, but they haven't really shown a lot of gameplay. Elden Ring comes to mind.
Let me ask you guys this question. Do they need another big acquisition, whether it's from the Asian market or Europe or one of these other countries? Do they need something like that?
I think yes. I think they need a bigger developer, and I do think that they need a Japanese studio, and I think that it's going to happen in due time. Now with this trip, like you alluded to, third party support. Certain things that he's been, working on each and every time he goes there. But I do think that he's been trying to get a Japanese studio. I can tell you that he's been trying to get a Japanese studio since March of 2018. So he's trying. I just don't think that it's an easy market for an American company to break into. I think there's I don't know if there's laws or there's
just regulations there that make it really hard. It's not
right.
It's not illegal, but you can do it. It's just there's a lot of
regulations, a lot of red tape. So I'm just hoping that even if it's something where he gets a small studio and then he injects some money, because I think Xbox needs a more of a global presence than it has.
Yeah,
it's viewed as an American company. And that's okay, but the way to break into these markets is to actually have your whether it's your buildings, stores, or if have actual people within the land that work and represent your company. And I think that Japan, they are in dire need to get some type of presence there, just for the games and just for the global presence. It's something that's very hard for them to get in, and obviously we know the story, but let's see what happens. I think he's trying, and I think that we might get some games that probably we thought were impossible that would never might come to the platform. So
Tim, I
guess we'll find out.
You look at the past, Tim, and I look at the 360 and what they were able to accomplish with the 360. And and they went to Japan and they picked up Miss Walker for a couple of games. I think they were on contract for 2 or 3 games. One was Blue Dragon and the other one was Lost Odyssey, which I miss those games. I'm telling you right now, and not signing people like that or studios like that is a huge loss for Xbox, no matter how you cut it. And I think Phil's trying to do a better job making some of those moves. I don't know if it's going to be exclusive like Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey was, but we need something in the lines of that. We need someone that's committed to the Xbox brand for maybe a couple of games or 2, or maybe even purchased outright making games like Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey, because there is a market for it. And I think in order for Xbox to, be a global, now I don't want to say power, because I don't think they'll ever be a global power in the industry, but at least they make some headway like they did with the 360. I think that's what I'm hoping for.
Now, to interject on this, outside of studios and games, I also see him trying to really grow Game Pass. I mean, not Game Pass, xCloud. xCloud and Game Pass, actually, if you want to combine them both, because we all know a majority of the Final Fantasies are getting ready to come to Game Pass, but also xCloud opens the potential for a lot of these, let's face it, PlayStation isn't a mobile. It is what it is. Neither is Xbox, but xCloud brings console games to a mobile market if it works the way it's supposed to. Yeah. And we know how heavy the mobile market is over in the Asian markets. And so this is going to give a lot of those console game developers over there the ability to actually get some of their software in the mobile market.
Now, again, this is off topic, but where's the iOS Game Pass, Tim? I mean, not Game Pass.
That's in
xCloud.
Testing right now. iOS is going to probably happen in 2 months. They built it, so it's already being built. Maxi, the girl for UK, actually for Xbox Germany, posted a video of her playing on iOS.
Oh wow!
She deleted it, but it's coming, and I think it's very interesting. I think Centurion, very good points. Yeah. What's really crazy, the most usage of xCloud and almost double what they're doing in the United States is in Korea. Think about that. 170% of usage of xCloud is coming from Korea. That is the place where the console does not exist.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show you that the xCloud is pretty powerful when it comes to the the way these gamers game in different countries. In Asia, they like that. They like the small games. They like the small form factors and stuff like that. This is going to be pretty big. I think Xbox really going the right way. iOS support is probably right around the corner. It's just a matter of passing through testing and probably a little bit of negotiating here and there. But one of the craziest stats I think that came out of the week was North Korea is just Korea in general is the number one usage of xCloud.
That's crazy.
And that is a place where they don't even play. They don't even have a console there.
Now,
so expect that to grow too.
Because of what Jeremy said, I have to add on, because he brought up iOS, and we were talking about the mobile market over there. What we see over here in the United States when it comes to iOS and the popularity of Apple products does not leave the United States.
Right.
Apple is not a very big company outside of the United States, and maybe a little bit in Canada and Mexico, but outside of that, Apple does not go overseas. They are not received well. As a matter of fact, that is why most of your counterfeit Apple products actually come out of the Asian markets, because they just duplicate it. They don't need it.
Absolutely.
I think also Xbox's biggest issue, if they can resolve it, is stop letting big Japanese developers or publishers go give exclusives to Sony just by default, just by not putting their game like Street Fighter. That one was kind of more of a publishing thing, but even like the Kingdom Hearts, they gave the Kingdom Hearts collection leading, after the Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, that shouldn't happen. Like, they gotta, anything that's not being published by Sony on the side, like, they shouldn't just get those by default. Kind of like Hellblade was.
Well, you got to remember the culture over there in those countries. They are a very proud, honorable society. And so they actually work very cohesively together, even though we see a lot of stuff that goes on between the public and the governments over there. They still work a little bit more cohesively on a personal being between companies when, obviously they're just wanting to keep it in their own backyard.
Well, not
that's
only
just
that,
how it works.
Their culture in general. I mean, even here in the States.
Out here in the United States, we all want to debate everything and explore every option. Over there, they're definitely like, oh yeah, you want us to, we have the Sony wants a Japanese game or an Asian game. Heck yeah, let's put it on there because literally they're one of us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Shock, you brought up obviously trying to get back all these exclusive titles, I guess, that were given to Sony. Could you see something like Neo coming over?
I mean, they should. I mean, they worked with Team Ninja before. That was the same one that we could give them Ninja Gaiden first, and then the lesser version Sigmas would go to Sony after. So I mean, they have a good relationship in the past and giving exclusives with Dead or Alive 4 back on the 360. So and there's getting Dead or Alive 5 or 6, or I think the latest one. So they're working with them. So,
but that's my point. You look at previous generation, and we had all these Japanese games that came either first to the Xbox, or they were being built for the Xbox, or even if it was third party. And now we don't have that. My question is, what happened?
I think a lot of that was the original Xbox had a lot of capabilities that when they did the Dead or Alive exclusives and Ninja Gaiden back on those were games they, probably either thought they couldn't, make it the way they wanted to on the PS2 hardware. And then you had the 360 where you had like people like BioShock, Mass Effect leading the way for 360. Probably because from a developer's, having a problem with the cell processor.
With the cell processor, yeah.
So I think that was more on hardware.
Also, I think with what happened also is that at one point Xbox thought that they can, when they built in Blue Dragon and they built in all these games, they didn't sell, and I think that they learned that they couldn't get a penetration in the market. And they kind of just said, screw it. This is a market where we can't win at. And I think that they went into this generation thinking that Japan was not a place where they could do well, just because they tried so hard with 360 and they didn't get anywhere.
I think there's still gonna be a focus on it, though. They can't just abandon it. I think that's why you see.
Well, yeah, I think that's why he's still doing what he's doing. I think he's trying to get to the point where, they're third-party developers. So, I remember having this argument with somebody. They look at the numbers and they see, well, these guys don't buy our games, so why are we going to make a game on their system? Now, Phil, I think, realized that was a problem. And part of when he goes and does this trip is he tries to give them some type of incentive to build their games and bring it to Xbox. Hopefully, Yakuza comes to the Xbox, things like that.
Delilah HD brings up a great point, and she says mostly because Peter Moore and his ties to Sega. And she brings up a really good point because Sega was Peter Moore was Sega at the time, and I think that relationship kind of spurred into the Xbox stuff to where he was able to make those moves. Hopefully Phil can do some other things like that. So
I think their best idea is to get a studio, build the studio, and make it a pretty big studio. And one thing about Japanese games is from production point, they're not a ton of money to make. So if you have a big studio, you can push out a couple of exclusives, JRPGs that the platform needs. I just think that That's probably one way of going, is kind of get a studio and build it out. Hire a bunch of people and have 2 to 3 JRPGs coming onto your platform in Game Pass, and add the variety that they need, because Japan, as we're speaking here, is a tough spot for Xbox to get any kind of traction. Maybe xCloud changes things over there, and I do, like I said, I think that they need that studio, and they need to have people working in their homeland to kind of get Xbox to where people look at it and accept it, because I still think that people look at Xbox in Japan as an American company and they want no part of it. And that's just my personal opinion on it.
Absolutely. Well, as far as Phil's trips go, I could definitely see them. I saw some tweets from Namco Bandai. They seem to have a strong partnership. Obviously, a lot of the Dragon Ball games have been featured at E3. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more for them coming up. Yeah, there's definitely more interest and investment going into Japan. I would like to see them get a big Japanese developer under their belt. Like Jeremy was saying, From Software would be awesome. They already have the history with them, plus the IP that they have. They're a treasure trove.
Can you imagine if they do purchase a company like From Software? We're talking. I mean, seriously, you'd have Sony guys jumping ship. That's how big of an impact it would make. From Software makes incredible games like the Dark Souls series. Sekiro. Sekiro.
It'd be huge if that would be.
Yeah.
That'd be something that would be really something that I do think could move the needle. The thing there, though, is that you got to realize the studios that are going to be purchased, in my opinion, if they do, are going to most likely be overseas, because they don't have tax implications that they would if they buy a studio within the United States. When they bought Minecraft, I believe that was from Sweden.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the tax implications. It was basically they didn't pay any taxes on it. From people I've talked to, they consider it offshore money. So, like studios in Poland, I think Techland is being, rumored, and all kinds of crazy rumors. If they land one huge studio, if they got like From Software, that would be like super.
It'd be insane. Yeah,
I think one that would be on the level of like the Minecraft purchase would be if they bought Sega, and because then they would have Atlas, which is Persona, the Shin Megami Tensei series, and then they could sell those games that are very big and popular in Japan. All those games would have a Microsoft logo on there, so it kind of gets that mind share. Like, you block them off like the Minecraft situation. Keep selling them, because you made that purchase. And then it kind of, maybe they start, possibly, buying some of your other games, that's made by you. So,
well, Shocks, you touched on my heart a little bit, buddy, because Sega's like one of my dreams. Can you imagine, with the studios they have in place now, and you get the IPs that Sega has? Can you imagine some of the content that just comes out of that place? We're talking just, Golden Axe, Alter Beast, just some amazing games that I miss. I'm a retro gamer and I miss those kind of games. But
I don't understand why we don't have a modern day Alter Beast.
Panzer Dragoon Saga.
Yeah, Panzer. I wish they did a remake, man.
Axe.
Maybe we'll get one on the Switch.
I mean, you have the Phantasy Star Online 2 that comes out. Big. And if you guys remember on the Dreamcast, that was a huge title. And it was revolutionary, and it's that kind of title has never been done on a console. It was an amazing game. A lot of people were playing it, and it made tons of money for the Dreamcast. Not enough, obviously, but I think Phantasy Star Online is going to be absolutely huge for Xbox. I think the beta is going to be coming up here shortly in March. So you can go to the actual, if you're a part of the Insider program, you can sign up for the Fantasy Star beta and be a part of that. And I know, Centurion, you're probably all into that stuff like me, like myself. But I can't wait for Fantasy Star Online too.
I'm gonna be a truthful. I have never experienced Fantasy Star, but I'm wanting to.
Yeah, so
Wow.
you'll get
I'm
it.
wanting to.
Yeah, you're gonna get into it, man. It's,
See, I played Blue Dragon in them on the 360. I have had my fair share of playing some Final Fantasies. As a matter of fact, I just purchased the Final Fantasy X and X2 package for Xbox One. I want to replay those ones. And I even also God, what was the one where they were driving around in the car? I think it was like Final Fantasy 15?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually bought and played that and beat it, and now I bought the actual Royal Edition, and I actually kind of want to play it again. Call me weird.
All right, weird.
Sega was so.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Sega was so revolutionary and innovative. Like, games like Destiny and just Borderlands. They took the blueprint from Fantasy Star, the whole raid system where you go into these levels and the final boss and you loot everything. It's just they took that blueprint from Fantasy Star, and it still holds up today. And it's a blueprint that's very profitable, and it brings lots of money to some of these huge companies like Activision and Bungie and just so on and so forth.
I don't think it ever happened, but I agree with you. I think Sega is a very intriguing. What I don't understand about Sega is, like you said, they have Altered Beast, they have Golden Axe, Fantasy Star. Why can't we get a modern day Fantasy Star that's high budget? How come they cannot? We keep getting cheap ass Sonic games that suck. Or they're like, I don't understand. Like, I think if they had the proper management and they had the proper production value behind some of their IPs, they could be huge again. But
so all the old regime from Sega is gone. There's no Smile Bit. There's no Yu Suzuki. Yu Suzuki still makes games now with Shenmue 3. But even he was out of the limelight for Yuji Naka, which is creator of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Who's created games like Burning Rangers and the Knights series, and he's gone out of the fold. They're just not the company like they used to be. But again, those IPs are appealing, and it's kind of like the whole Konami bit. Where's Konami? They have amazing IPs that have done nothing, absolutely nothing, this last generation with those amazing IPs.
Yeah, well, they left for the mobile market. You know what they do now?
Mm-hmm.
They actually, it's true. They actually do like they do cell phone games. Like if you do gambling, like you like the slot machines, they have slot machines on.
They still do
mobile.
soccer.
Yeah, they but yeah, that was a powerhouse IP. But when when the whole thing with Kojima and that breakthrough, they basically said we're only going into mobile. But again, yeah, they have so many IPs that they could, rejuvenate. And Sega too, like you said, they've lost a lot of people. It just seems like they need somebody to actually buy them and say, hey, let's put production value behind Sonic, and let's pick a couple of these awesome IPs. I mean, I don't know. I think you can get away with doing something like Altered Beast in a modern day thing. I think that was one of the craziest ideas when that game came out. I mean, looking back and playing it now, it's like you laugh at how shitty it is. But that captured my imagination back in the day.
Well, what's funny, the thing about Konami though is people they always refer to them as just a gaming company, but in actuality they're a huge gambling conglomerate in Japan. They just make tons of money. They're like printing money, and they don't even need their gaming division. So it's like, they kind of went. Yeah, they kind of just went. In fact, their gaming division.
They made pinball machines too. A ton of pinball.
Oh
machines.
yeah. But in fact, their video game division, which their biggest cash cash hole was freaking Kojima. He was spending tons of money on, some of these games. His budgets were out of control. I mean, you heard horror stories about Kojima and his budgets and how much they were affecting what Konami was doing. So we went way off topic with a lot of these other topics, but
isn't Silent Hill under Konami as well?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Suikoden. I haven't seen that since PS2 days.
Contra, the Bomberman franchise, and just so many.
Yeah.
Just waste.
Just do a Google search on them. You'll see how many games they have.
So many. Now, I think we'll finish this off soon, fellas. But just, I'm going to bring something up here because obviously you guys know Itagaki, who was on Team Ninja for a while. He had started his own studio in Rome not too long ago. And everybody's kind of been wondering what he's been working on. I don't know. Do you think Xbox would maybe cheat a bit? Be like, well, it's hard to get a studio in Japan, but maybe we can get this guy in Rome and set him up a bit.
Make this a Ninja Gaiden, spiritual successor.
Hey, why not? I mean, the guy obviously has the creativity. He has the background. Why not? I say, I'm not saying throw money at him, but I'd be curious to see what he can come up with. But that's me.
Hi. Come on, say hi.
Hi.
We have a visitor, Joy.
Hola.
Say hi, Joy.
Hi.
Hi, Joy.
Hi.
She's a Roblox fanatic.
You're on TV. You're on TV.
Yeah, you're on TV, Joy.
I'm on TV.
Yeah, look at it. Say hi.
Yeah, none of our
All right,
have
get
our
out.
faces this week.
Hey, buddy.
Very cute. Very cute. All right, guys. Well, I think on that note, we'll end off the show. And really great chat tonight, guys. Also, really awesome crowd in the chat. Lots going on here. Other Zinc, I know you've been pretty active. Thank you for joining us, my friend. Delilah HD, thanks as always, Delilah, joining on. We got Victor Alistine. Thanks for joining, buddy. I see you on a few of the shows. I definitely appreciate your feedback. BZ McNasty, always great to see you here. Post Up, I saw you joining in. Dead Rising Ninja, thank you very much for the chatter in the chat. We had NLG, we had Stinger drop by, of course, and Dinero Primero, and all kinds of really cool people. Shizno Elite. Definitely a fun crew tonight. And guys, if you happen to enjoy the talk tonight, then consider sharing out the show and subbing to the channel to keep up to date with things. Anyways, guys, let's do the panel outros. Jeremy, where can everybody find you, pal?
You can find me under a rock. No, I'm just kidding. You can find me on Twitter at LoneMasterWho07. I'm also on Xbox, Downer Space J. You could find me there, or you can find me on PlayStation. My gamer tag for PlayStation is Green Knight 07.
Nice. Green Knight, really?
Yep.
Oh. Throwing me off there, buddy. All right, let's see. Hey, Shock, buddy, great show tonight. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you can find me at I can't remember my name. At Shock Nero on Twitter, Easy Shock on Xbox Live. I'd give my Switch friend code, but we have friend codes and we pay for that service. Yeah, that's and no cloud saves that automatically download. Yeah, but that's another point. But thanks for coming and stopping by.
Ooh, somebody a little bitter with the Switch, but I totally understand what you mean on that. Centurion, another awesome show, pal. Where can everybody find you?
As always, you guys can always find me on YouTube, Twitter, and Xbox Live at Centurion1307. I also kick it here with you guys every Sunday on the TXR Podcast. I'm on the Saltiest Gaming Podcast on Thursdays and the Shop Podcast on Saturdays.
Nice, nice. And Tim Dog, again, great show, pal. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me xCloud Tim Dog on Xbox Live and on Twitter, xCloud Tim Dog. I also am on RDX Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. and always here Sunday, 9 p.m. During the week. And just good show tonight, guys. And thanks for sticking around during a pretty tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Good show. Everybody seems to be feeling better. Lots of good spirits in the chat.
I feel better for sure.
Yeah. Well, and guys, I'm Invader. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Invader Gaming. I'll have a review out soon for Terminator Resistance, which I happen to really enjoy, believe it or not. And you can find me on Twitter at Invader_1986. Guys, great show. Thanks for stopping by. We cannot wait to see you next Sunday. It's been a blast. See you, everybody.